Well, hello, everybody out there, Manchester, Hooks, Auburn. This is the Progress Report. And by gosh, this is the last Wednesday in May. We're almost into June, gang. Summer is coming, and even though the temperatures hadn't been that warm most of the time, it's a delightful day today.
Had a few nice days sprinkled in.
And today
was not a bad one.
Today was a beauty, absolutely. And we are very pleased to be back, Mike and I, and we have another Mike with us, Mike Lopez. I used to, in your long tenure with the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, I think you were the dean of the board. You were the chairman of the board, weren't you?
The chairman of the board, 8 years.
8 years. I used to say he's the indispensable man. I don't know how the city survived since you left, but
It
we
hasn't been
struggle
the same
on.
without you, Mike.
Somebody takes over.
Somebody takes over. Truly, nobody's
Hasn't been the
indispensable,
same.
I guess, but
Yeah.
you seem to be in all the things you did for us here in the city of Manchester. And we're going to turn it over to Mike Farley to talk about a continuing project. But, you know, you did so many things for the city, Mike. And one I remember is the World War II Memorial down on Veterans Park, which is a beautiful addition to the park and very timely. And
Very important.
And you're an Army vet yourself, I know that, and I'm sure you're proud of your service, and you've made it part of your life's work to honor those who've served, and I guess that's what we're doing today. But, Mike, I understand you may have a POTUS report on
Well,
the progress
you know,
report for us
I
today.
kind of felt bad. I was coming off vacation last week, and I really didn't have a POTUS report, so I hope you'll forgive me. I got a little bit of an extended one. I'm going to try to cram a few things in here. And what I'm trying to focus on today is kind of shine some light on a few things. One thing that really grabbed at me is this new White House policy that seems to be interdepartmental, that has resulted in, it's an aggressive border patrol policy, and it's resulted in minor children, some infants actually, being separated from their parents at the border. And instead of, being proud of this and broadcasting it, the administration is saying, well, geez, it's not our fault. We hate to be doing this, even though it was never done before and they instituted it. We hate to be doing this. It's the Democrats that pass these laws that make us do this. So I wanted to take a look at the laws that they are citing as the reason why they're separating children from their parents at the border. And they were, in fact, laws passed during Democratic administrations by Democrats. One is an anti-trafficking law, which simply says that in trafficking cases, children are to be held in the least restrictive environment possible. There's another law similar to that relating to immigration that says children cannot be held indefinitely as prisoners in immigration detention centers. So yes, those are the laws. And the thing is, they're forgetting about the component that they're introducing, and that is the actual separation of the family.
Yeah, right.
These laws do not require that these children be separated from their family.
That's right.
But if you want to impose these draconian border patrol policies and incarcerate everyone that crosses the border with questionable documentation, and you want to put them in these harsh immigration detention facilities, you can't put the kids there. So I guess you have to separate the kids from the parents. But it's not the Democratic law, which is a very humane law, that is causing this problem. The problem is a new policy on the behalf of the White House. They've been to court on it, and they have been unable to express any justification for it beyond punishment and deterrence. And for my thinking, that's just not a proper policy, good reason for policy. Part two of the POTUS report today. This is something I was shocked to find out. We've been watching the Mueller investigation going on for about a year now. And a recent poll indicates that 80% of Republicans believe the Mueller investigation has found no evidence of criminal wrongdoing.
Really?
80%. And, I've started talking about this. Republicans out there, you got to check yourself here. You belong to an organization that I respect. There's different points of view, but when you're in an organization where 80% of the group doesn't believe criminal wrongdoing's been found, I just wanted to point out that there have been 9 guilty pleas with guys serving time right now and 19 indictments on top of that. So to think that there's been no evidence of criminal wrongdoing is just, you're wrong, sorry to say. And it's not an opinion, it's a fact. Mm-hmm. And you either get with the facts or you don't. I don't know what Republicans are going to choose to do, but they certainly are disengaged from the world. And then part 3 of the progress report today, I know I'm going a little bit longer, but I wanted to jam a couple things in here. I want to talk about this Roseanne Barr thing and the president's lack of response and then response. I think it's pretty clear the president's a racist, and I'm going to just say it. I think it's pretty clear the
We made
president
that clear.
is a
Charlottesville,
racist.
didn't
We didn't ask,
Yeah.
we're not putting this on him. He's claiming it, wrapping himself in it. And we could do innumerable examples of why we come to this conclusion. But with this Roseanne Barr thing, we can debate whether ABC did the right thing in hiring her in the first place. I mean, it's not as simple maybe as it seems. But you got to wonder if you support and endorse and perhaps donate to, maybe work for, put up signs for a racist to be president of the United States. I'm curious to see how you differentiate that from your own personal feelings, because I have very good friends who are Republican voters who voted for Donald Trump. They insist they're not racist. I never would think they're racist. But how do you support a racist like that and not be a racist? I'm very curious about that.
Well, you heard about the latest on that, didn't you?
Well, you're talking about her blaming Ambien.
You're blaming
Yeah,
Ambien.
that's what I'm going to close
Okay,
with.
okay.
Roseanne, her response to her own, racism has been mixed at best. But one of her tweets said, it was an Ambien-induced tweet.
At 2 a.m.
I guess. I don't know what that's about. But the makers of Ambien have come out publicly and said, yes, all drugs have side effects. Ambien does have side effects, but racism is not a side effect of Ambien. And I think that's pretty clear. So we'll leave it with that. Certainly, we could discuss it if you want, but I just wanted to shine some light on some facts here. I just wonder how long the support can hold out without each of these individuals beginning to question themselves. We know people who supported him intensely during.
Well, there's a very significant departure from the usual Republican sycophancy about this president, and that was this guy, Trey Gowdy, who came out and said, despite what Trump has claimed, there was no FBI informant infiltrating their campaign. There was an FBI informant that was trying to get facts about the Russian interference in our election, which is a very grave affair, and deserves all the tools the FBI can throw at it, I think, to defend our democracy against foreign entanglements that are malicious. And Trey Gowdy, who's was the main prosecutor, some might say persecutor of Hillary Clinton over the Benghazi
that whole
thing.
Benghazi, yeah.
I mean,
he was on Benghazi.
He had that 11-hour hearing, kept her in the hot stand over that somehow she was to blame for the deaths in Benghazi, which has never been anything more than a total piece of BS. He came out and said that there was no evidence to support Trump's claim that his campaign had been infiltrated by FBI spies, that there was an informant doing what informants are supposed to do, providing facts to justify prosecutions.
Well, they're peeling away, but I'm noticing the ones that are peeling away are the ones that are going to go become lobbyists and won't be running for re-election. So
well, that does.
They're
that
going
does
to go
seem
make
be
their
true.
millions of
Yeah,
dollars
okay.
Influencing the political process in the
Well,
future.
there you go, Mike, and another great POTUS report and the progress report. Now we're going to get to our distinguished guest, and we're very much looking forward to his being part of this. And we're looking forward to you participating if you choose to. 640-3091. Call in. We'll try and get you on the air as soon as we can take a call conveniently and not interrupt the flow of discussion. So why don't you go ahead and introduce our guest?
Mike, welcome to the show. You've been on the show before, but you're here today in a completely different capacity. In the spirit of Memorial Day, which we just observed, I think it's fitting that we have you on to talk about veterans issues, and you have one particular project that you really wanted to talk about. But before we get to that, I want to introduce yourself to the people who may not know you. There might be 2 or 3 folks in the city who don't know who you are, but it's always all about the people here on the Progress Report. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, Mike Lopez, was an alderman for 12 years. I served in the military for 22 years, United States Army, retired. I belong to various veterans organizations in the city of Manchester, and I was formerly years ago on the Parks and Recreation Commission. And Veterans Memorial Park became a reality under under the commission structure we have in the city. So we've done a lot. I think Bob mentioned earlier in the conversation that one of the major projects I'm very proud of is the World War II monument.
And rightfully proud, rightfully so.
Yeah,
It's a
very,
beautiful
very
monument.
beautiful monument, very, very distinguished, adds to the class of that park.
And this past Memorial Day on Monday, we have Monday and then we have the real one today.
Right,
Correct.
today is actually Memorial Day.
That's correct. And the cemetery New Hampshire celebrates, memorize the veterans on Memorial Day, the 30th today at the cemetery. Just recently, we dedicated 5 flagpoles of services, the Army, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, Marines. At the park, we put in 20 granite benches through the Manchester Veterans Council to help out the destination of the park that they're trying to achieve. So, but coming back to the particular project.
Yeah, let's dive right in.
Yeah.
We're going to even see a video
Yes.
later on in the next segment of the show. But why don't you introduce the project? What's it all about? Whose idea was it? Where are we going? And this is all up in Boscawen, right at the Veterans
At the
Cemetery.
Veterans Cemetery, a little bit about the Veterans Cemetery. Back in 1997, when it first started, it's actually 20 years now that the cemetery is there. We have over 10,000 burials there. You got about 8,500 veterans, and the rest are spouses that can be buried with their husbands. We developed only about 13 acres back then, and we're expanding this year to do another maybe 10 acres. That Mike Horn is the director up there, and he's got the money for it from the government. So we're moving along in that area. I don't know I'm sure you've been up there, haven't you?
I have been up there.
Yep.
Is any veteran eligible to be buried in that cemetery, whether they were on the active duty combat or not?
Basically the rule is if you served in the military and get a DD-214, you can be buried there. But that's not the solid rule. That's the basic rule. There is about another 28 or 29 different categories that people can be buried there. And the best thing to do is to contact the cemetery. If you're military, contact the cemetery. If you have a DD-214, if you don't have a DD-214, they will tell you what to do, or they look at your military history and tell you what category you might be in. So what we try to do as the board of directors of the Veterans Advisory Board is never give that answer directly that you're eligible. But the basic rule is DD-214, you're automatically eligible, but other people are eligible also. But there's a whole list of things. And
What's that DD-214? What
DD-2
Oh, Bob, I was going to tease that out to the next segment.
Okay.
And in fact,
Well, it's
I'm going to interrupt.
it's
We're
time
time
for
for
our
the break.
break.
We're going to find out what a DD-214 is on the other side of the break, folks. So you have to come back now, unless, of course, you're a veteran, which I am not, which is why I don't know the answer to the question. But we'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back to talk with Mike Lopez about great things happening up at the New Hampshire Veterans Cemetery in Boscawen. See you in about 30 seconds. Don't go away.
Okay, Mike.
Well, we'll
we're
jump-
back with Mike, and then we've got the other Mike, Mike Lopez. And this is actually Memorial Day. Let us remember, it doesn't always fall on a Monday. So we have Monday for a holiday, but the actual Memorial Day going back to, well, it goes back to the Civil War, doesn't it? Isn't it?
oh yeah, this goes.
Originally Decoration Day, right?
Decoration Day.
Yeah.
The federal government has the Monday that they celebrate. And New Hampshire celebrates the cemetery on the 30th.
Yeah, so we're very timely here. We've got the
and-
right day and the right date.
And I kind of like the traditional celebrations. It's
Yeah.
kind of tough celebrating, for example, Washington's birthday when it's not even his birthday.
Yeah, I know.
Speaking of which, you had a birthday recently.
I did.
Well,
You made it very special, Mike, I must say.
Well, look, let's get back into this show. Mike, first things first, what is the DD-214?
DD-214 is your active service that you've served. And everybody that serves on active duty gets a DD-214 when they leave the service. It tells you your decorations you got, your period of service, how much active duty you got, what reserve time you got to do, and whether you've been in combat and stuff like that.
It's kind of like your permanent record from high school.
Oh, it's a very important record.
Well, and I don't mean to make light of it, but
That's
it's everything from your enlistment to your discharge. It's pretty much
that's
your
right.
report card.
And that's the basic item that you need to get into the cemetery. But there's other categories that people fall in that I don't want to give it. The best thing is to call the cemetery and get the information, or go on their website and get the information.
If you have any reason to believe that
You're eligible and you want to go to the
a
cemetery.
veteran, and
Yeah.
and sure, and that's the kind of honor that we want our veterans to if they want that we want them to be able to have that. You were talking a little bit about the size of the cemetery, and I want to kind of quickly get to the video very shortly, but I was very surprised because I've been out to the cemetery, and it's quite an impressive space now. Very well landscaped, very well groomed, a lot of visual components. But I did not realize that the cemetery property encompasses such a large area of the old Boscawen forest. So I was surprised to find out that only a small component of this is developed. So there's plenty of room to expand this over time.
Yeah, we've only developed, or not I, but the Adjutant General. The cemetery comes under the Adjutant General of New Hampshire. And there's 200 acres up there, and we've only developed 13 acres. So there's a lot of room up there.
So without further ado, could you? We're gonna show a video that's put out by the people who are putting together this Veterans Heritage and Learning Center. And can you just kind of give us a little intro as to what we're going to be seeing? And then when we get to the other side of it, it's about 10 minutes long, a little longer. When we get to the other side of it, we can kind of talk about the project and what you're doing.
Yeah, the video was put out by the Veterans Association that's associated with the cemetery. Back in 2001, the cemetery cannot receive money as a active. The Adjutant General's office, they can't receive money, so they created a 501(c) of people. And so in 2001, that was created. And over those years, we get the donations, we allocate it to Mike Horn in this particular case, of different projects that he has to go to. And at the same time, a lot of people have put monuments up there. If you walk through the monuments, you got about 30 or 40 monuments up there from dedicated to the Purple Heart, Army, Marines, Navy, you name it. So it's a good opportunity to go up there. The Veterans Heritage Learning Center was an idea 2 years ago that we went through as a body of board of directors and came up with the idea that we have to educate our students about the veterans all the way back into the 1800s. And so the idea was born that we would create a Veterans Heritage Learning Center, because each year 3,000 visitors come to the center, and over 300 students come there throughout the year.
Well, that's impressive, Mike. I didn't know you had that range of number of visitors every year.
Oh, yeah,
That's
absolutely.
very, very impressive.
Yeah, they come there and just walk through and relax. I always tell people, you know a brother, sister, father, whatever the case may be, that's a veteran that might be buried there. And if you don't know anybody that's there and you don't know a veteran, go up and pick one up, and you'll get the feel of what it is for a veteran to be buried there. So, anyways, we created this for the future to educate the students in the state of New Hampshire, working with the Department of Education. a couple of our people went there and talked to them to have them incorporate into what we're trying to do, and they bought it, they love it. And so we built the building, and now we're putting the technology in there. And without that, I'll lead into the film because it explains it a lot better than I could explain it.
Well, great. So in the control booth, let's roll that video. We'll sit back, relax, have a little bit of popcorn, and we'll come back on the other end and talk about it.
Hello everyone, my name is Jason Cody from Manchester Public TV. Today we're going to be having a nice walkthrough of the New Hampshire State Veterans Cemetery. Right here is the director of the cemetery, Mike Horn. Mike, how you doing?
I'm great, thanks. Thanks, Jason. Thanks for coming.
This is an amazing place. We actually I've toured it a couple of times now, and it's wonderful, and I actually want to see some of the great things that you guys have going on. So if I was to walk in here, and I wanted to find a plot that we have here, what would be the first thing that I would do?
Well, hopefully you come here 7 days a week, daylight hours. This area is open, and you could come here to our grave locator, touch a screen, wake it up, and then you could look up, and I'm sorry, the last name was?
Pichette, P-I-C-H.
And if you put in a few letters, then you hit search, and it will, Pichette, Thomas?
Yes.
And over here, there's a little button, you hit select, it pulls up his name, but the other nice thing, and you just look, you can print the page. The cemetery is 20 years old, last November. It's 104 acres, and when it was cleared, 15 acres were cleared, the roads put in, no buildings, the chapel was added a few years after it opened. And then in 2000 is when the center section was raised up because we needed to expand and put more columbariums in. And so when that happened, 20 points of New Hampshire military history was added. That was a private fundraiser led by the nonprofit, the New Hampshire Veterans Cemetery Association. Raised those funds and put 20 points of New Hampshire military history up there, storyboards that tell the history for visitors to come visit graves, but also to learn about New Hampshire's military history and what the veterans have done throughout the years. At the same time, there was a walkway, the memorial walkway, looking over your shoulder out through the window, about 1,000 feet long, and that now has 75 to 80 monuments from various services honoring different veterans from civic groups, veteran groups, and so that's another educational piece that the cemetery offers. Only 15 of the 104 acres were developed. The light green is what is currently open, that's graves or grass that we maintain. The darker green and brown, that's expansion. Based on the cremation right here, it's probably going to take the century to fill up the cemetery. And this is the only New Hampshire veteran cemetery, and that's why we really feel not just a cemetery, but a place to learn about the veterans, and why the Veterans Heritage Learning Center is such an exciting addition that we want to tell you about.
One of the things that the board of directors have thought about is having an educational center so that the youth can come here and learn about the veteran and the history of all the great things that has happened over a number of years. And so along the line, a couple years ago, we decided that we'd build a building and get the technology. We created a 4-minute video, which we'll show you later. I think it's a great video, and I think also that we want to educate the students. That's the main goal that we have. It's a major project, and we've come public now to get the public to come in and help us along the donation aspect. I'll be introducing you to the Major General, who's our chairman of the board, Major General Gretchen Dunkenberger, and she's going to explain the interior of what's going to happen here.
So what I'd like to tell you a little bit about is the Veteran Heritage Learning Center. It's a new construction, about 1,200 square feet, that we put on last year. And what we're trying to do is carry the information that started outside in our 20 points of history inside so that students, because I'm sure you're all aware, in elementary school and in high school, they both have a requirement to study New Hampshire history. So this is our opportunity to tell the military's history, which is very rich and robust. So outside, our time period covers the late 1600s through to current day, and we're going to transition that into here. So this is our overall layout. It's a rendering of, as you have seen when you came in, the space is empty right now, but we are in the process of developing some static exhibits as well as some interactive exhibits that students that come through will be able to learn even more about our rich history. So we're going to be covering in the studio, or in the Learning Center itself, a little bit about what it takes to be interned here, what a veteran is. We're going to talk a bit about faith, because they will see when they go out to visit the headstones that there are many different symbols out there representing all different faiths. And then we're going to start with our rich history in 1600s, pre-Revolutionary War. We'll then go into the Revolutionary War, Civil War, World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and then now our most current will be the Duel in the Desert. So students will loop around and look at some displays here. In the center of our studio, we're going to have a Foot Locker theater. And so what we plan to do is take what look like old Foot Lockers, military Foot Lockers, that are actually empty, that we can open, and we're going to fill them with artifacts from different time periods. So as students or any visitor that comes to the cemetery can open it up and maybe find a helmet from World War II or some medals from Civil War, and just see what, or weapons, of course, that are no longer functioning. But they'll be able to put on a backpack and feel what the people that are currently in the desert are wearing, so they know what our veterans and military are dealing with. And then after the studio, then they'll have these static displays that, as I said, will go through each of the different time periods. What we want to tell them is a little bit about the era, the time period that will be covered, what was going on globally in the world, and then what's happening in New Hampshire, and who are some of the New Hampshire heroes that we'll highlight throughout history.
So, General, what exactly is here? What is that going to actually be telling people who visit?
So these are going to be what we call our local heroes, and they're going to be stanchions around the room. There'll be 14 of us, where we can or 14 of the stands, where we can highlight a New Hampshire veteran, military member, and we can change them depending on what season it is, or what era. You know, for World War II, we could put all World War II veterans in there, but it'll tell the branch of service of the hero and their service, which conflict they were involved in, and just a little bit about their hometown and how, you know, what was going on in their time period. So this is something we will collaborate, we hope, with the secondary school educators to tailor it for their classes when they come in. Our big project, and as you know, we're in the midst of our fundraising, is to get some interactive devices in here so that students and visitors have more of an experience where they can interact with the experience. So in the space that we're in right now, we plan to put a big touch screen monitor that they can look at the state of New Hampshire and touch on their hometown or their county and see what they might learn that has come out of New Hampshire's military history. So on our very back wall here, we are going to have a listing of all of the New Hampshire Medal of Honor recipients from the early 1700s forward. And what we will have is a plaque with either their picture or the medal of the time that they received it. And then we're going to have all the citations. If anyone would like to learn more about our site, we have a Facebook page for the Veterans Heritage Learning Center. You can go and learn more about the facility itself and what we plan to put in here. Additionally, if people would like to donate, there will be opportunities or a pathway for them to do that.
We want to educate the students. That's the main goal that we have. It's a major project. And we've come public now to get the public to come in and help us along the donation aspect. So please listen as to what's going on and learn, and you'll see how important this is for the state of New Hampshire to have something like this.
This is a real place of connection to history, connection to the past, but also connection to the future. It's almost like it should have been here from the very beginning.
Well, the cemetery is only right now 20 years old, so it's still pretty new. The 20 points of history that we have, the memorial walkway, are only starting points of how we want to educate future generations. And the Veterans Heritage Learning Center is really going to help us move from where we're at to where we're going. There's really no other place in New Hampshire that focuses on all the New Hampshire veterans like the cemetery does. It seems to be more and more of a focal point.
The vision that came out of the early concepts came to be known as the 20 Points of History, and the idea here is that they move the classroom around in an experiential way and read those stories, discuss those stories in the context of people being literally buried feet from where they are.
With the Education Center, we'll be able to tell more stories of the individuals who are interred here. We've got ex-POWs that survived the Bataan Death March. There's a number of World War II and Korean War vets who were interred here.
Some of those people who are buried there are probably like 18, 19 years old, 20, 21. They didn't really have much of a life, you know. I'm 71 years old, you know. Thanks to them, we should all be very, very grateful to every one of them people who are buried there.
With the Education Center, here's where you go take it further and go out to the walkway, go out to the 20 points, and walk right out and you can find the grave. We'll have GPS applications for your smartphone. You can leave the classroom and just feel like you continue your journey out into the cemetery. You know, actually get that feeling of, you know, there was a real person that created this history.
Kids have said that many times is the most powerful thing for them because they've made a personal connection, whether or not they knew that person. They just feel like they are able to go and almost say thank you to that veteran by acknowledging them at their gravestone.
I think that it's important to know who the person was. My brother's headstone says beloved son, brother, and friend, because he was all of those things and a million more. But if you walk around and you read the headstones, the inscriptions that some people put, you get to really know who these people were. It gives you an idea of who's there and a little bit about their story.
The scope that we're trying to obtain here at the cemetery, especially being a state organization, just isn't going to happen unless we get some people that have the ability to help fund and move us ahead. So we really hope that people will take the vision as they did with the 20 points back in 2000. This is the next step as we continue to develop and grow the cemetery. Very few people can make a huge impact.
People are motivated, they want to help. All we have to do is ask for it. Put the seed out and it'll grow.
Well, that was quite a presentation, certainly a moving presentation and inspirational with the vision of what you guys are putting together with the charts that they went over. So talk a little bit about where things stand now. I assume there's a financial goal that has to be met in order to pay for all the technology and the carpentry work that's going to build these kiosks and everything else. How much do you need to raise? How much has been raised? Where are you getting your funding? Is there an opportunity for folks in Manchester to maybe write a check and become a part of this?
Well, we're on, like I said, in the public aspect of fundraising now. We'll accept $1 to 1,000 to whatever number. There are naming rights to certain items at the cemetery. But first of all, we have reached our goal of 50%, which is pledges or actual received. It could be a 3-year pledge and down payments each year, but there's various anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 to $10,000, all the way up to naming rights is $150,000. We're still looking for that one.
Bob, how about you and me? We go halvesies.
But we have a lot of 10s and 20s, and I'd rather not. They're going to deliver their names eventually, and we have opening day coming up, and that's when those that want their names publicly, some don't.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to give any names of people who sponsor things today. Like for an example, those Foot Lockers that you see, those are $3,000 sponsorship. There's about 9 left. So
talk a little bit about those. We were chatting a little bit while the video was going on, and we saw in the video where they're going to have Foot Lockers in the space that kids can actually open up, and there will be what? Describe what's going to be in there, what they'll see.
Each Foot Locker will be designated for some part of the war history. Let's say
World War II Europe, World War II Pacific, that kind of thing?
Yeah, the kids will be sitting on the Foot Lockers, and the teacher or the instructor might say, okay, World War II, number 4, let's say, for an example. Would you open up your Foot Locker? And you might pull out a helmet, World War II helmet, or a belt.
Or a boot.
Or a boot. To get kids like to touch things, And this was the idea as we built this center, is the kids want to touch, and they have the iPhone today to record things for their own use, and that's what the technology center is going to be all about. It's all going to be high tech, that whereby you just go in there with a phone, you can record, plug, do anything, Wi-Fi, whatever you want, and so the Foot Locker is a bigger part of. We're not a collection agency. Some people think we want everything. We don't want everything.
It's not a museum. It's a learning experience.
It's a learning experience, and we only take so many. Some people want to give us their whole collection. We can't use it. We have no place to store it. So it's selective things that we will put in each Foot Locker, like for Vietnam and Korea, World War I, World War II.
How will it be staffed? Are you going to be hiring docents or guides? How are they going to be the cemetery staff? Will your organization stay on to run it? How's that going to work?
Well, our organization will always stay on. The players might change, but our organization will be there to support the cemetery. We haven't come to that phase yet, but we realize that once this thing is built, that we're going to have somebody there. And volunteers are volunteers, but we need somebody to take care of stuff. And we anticipate that we'd be able to hire somebody, but we're not at that stage yet.
Mm-hmm.
Right now we're doing, there's the phases in the phases. First phase is 4 different things that we're doing. We're creating the whole thing and paying for the first 4 phases of it because we have the money. So our goal is to reach $700,000 technology to put the money into the place, so that we have, and then ongoing donations to preserve it and operate it. So
Mike, your video says, or maybe you said, I can't remember, the cemetery is only 20 years old.
That's it.
I'm quite surprised by that. I thought that had been there a lot longer than that. But you do have remains of servicemen who have served in wars long before the last 20 years, don't you? I mean, do you have Civil War veterans there? Do you have Revolutionary War people there?
I can't answer that question in affirmative. I don't know.
But you have
that's a
World
very
War
good
I
question.
veterans and World War II veterans there?
I'd have to double check with that. I don't want to
Okay.
say we do.
Mm-hmm.
Some people might have been transferred in, and I don't have that knowledge. But I will. That's a very good question that I'll ask Mike Horn. I don't think so, but I don't want to be
Okay, I just wondered because
That's a good question.
I didn't know the cemetery was that new.
It's 1997.
Well, and it looks absolutely beautiful. It's certainly being very lovingly and carefully maintained to present a very pleasing visual experience when you go up there. Yeah.
Well, it looks like we're at the point where we would take our second break. Why don't we take a breather? We'll regroup and finish up the last segment in just a few seconds. Don't go away, folks. And by the way, you can call in 640-3091.
So everybody, if you're just joining this edition of the Progress Report, the last one for the month of May 2018, we've been very pleased to have with us not only my good friend Mike Farley, who's here most Wednesdays unless it's the first of the month, but also Mike Lopez, long serving the city of Manchester as an alderman and became the dean of aldermen, the chairman of the board of aldermen, and a Army veteran, and he has devoted a lot of time and effort to developing an educational experience in our wonderful veteran cemetery up in Boscawen, New Hampshire, which is certainly moving up to be very up to date with the times. And we've just had a lovely video about the plans and the real effort to make this not just a dry experience, but a living, important experience, especially for, I think, young people to learn something about the distinguished military history we have in New Hampshire. So it's been great to have him here. So over to you, Mike.
Well, Mike, in the break, there was another feature that they're talking about putting in that I just wanted to kind of talk about a little bit, and that was apparently they're going to be stands, several of them, that are going to be loaded with information on individual heroes, they're calling them. And I'm not going to ask you to name who's on or off the list yet, although is there a nominating process? Can I get my mom to send a letter maybe about my dad? I don't know. But tell us a little bit about what the goal of that feature is going to be and how your organization envisions it being used.
Well, it's a kiosk that whereby the selection of the people in different various wars will be selected, and a bio will be presented on them and added to them. Some family members might have some information that we don't have, and so they'll provide the information which will be on there. And it can be added more. You can start off with 10. You can add 20, 30.
And rotate them.
Rotate them. Some information we don't have about certain individuals that are buried there, for an example. Bob brought up a very good question as to whether there was any Civil War veterans. I doubt very seriously, but I don't know the answer to it. But for an example, you've seen the Medal of Honor wall we're going to have. That's all the medal, and all the Medal of Honor winners from New Hampshire. Keep that in mind. Not across the country. That's from New Hampshire. It'll be on.
There was a good number in the exhibit there.
The latest one was Ryan Pitts, who was a Medal of Honor winner, and his bio will be there. Some school kid, where he come from and where he went to school, will come there and look him up and get all the information on Ryan Pitts.
So the information that you're going to be providing is not limited to those who are necessarily interred in the cemetery. It's going to be a historical perspective of veterans, of service members, broader than just the individuals in the cemetery itself.
That's correct.
There may be information, let's say, for example, of a Henry Sweeney, who we're very proud of here in Manchester, the first Manchester boy to die in World War I.
That's correct.
I'm assuming General John Stark, who had a small role to play in the independence of this nation, may have something about his military career in there.
Or Colonel Cross from Lancaster, the greatest hero we had in the Civil War from New Hampshire.
Indeed.
Well, you have the 20 points of history that's out there in the walkway now, and that'll be transformed into technology inside. And so,
is it going to remain outside too, or?
Well, yeah, we're not going to take those down. The information will also be printed in there, and all kind of information that you can go back to the 1800s and find somebody, or a Medal of Honor winner, let's say it was in 1800, you will be able to see who that was and what he did. So it's going to be outstanding when it gets done.
So there's a big event happening on Veterans Day this year?
Well, we're trying to open it up for Veterans Day. Whether we do it the day before or whether we do it 2 days before, that's in the planning stage. Whether we do it on Veterans Day, the committee's going to decide, and there's a committee out there looking at the aspects of it. But it will be open, and we'll have the first phases of our project in there to get the public to take a good look at it. And then, depending when we get the rest of them. We need money, folks. It costs money and
I'm
technology.
sure it does.
Well, let's jump right into that. Let's if someone wanted to see, they might be interested in sponsoring one of those 9 remaining Foot Lockers. They want to get a little plaque, I assume, or anonymous. How do they do it? How do they call your house, or do they go on the website?
Well, they can do
what's the
a
fundraising
couple
involved?
things. You can go on the www.nhvca.org and look there, and they tell you exactly what to do. You can contact Mike Horn at the cemetery. You can contact me here in Manchester. My phone number is 669-8058, and I'm always available, and I can steer you in the right direction. The first thing you would have to do is to do a pledge form or provide the necessary funds for that before we actually save a Foot Locker for you, an example. Or you got the big screen that we're going to have there, which is $10,000 for the screen. Your name would be posted up here as the donator for that. But if you want to remain anonymous, we can do all those things. I don't do the administrative aspect of it. We have an accountant. We have Mike Horn who assists us. We have an individual who writes all the letters. We have a fundraising chairman who's a general who took over the fundraising committee that stays on top of a lot of this. And so we'll get you the right person if you're interested. You can either do it yourself or contact me, and I'll put you in contact or do the paperwork or get you to the right location. Like I said in the beginning, we're in the public aspect of it. So any type of donation,
Small donations good?
$10, $100, $200, $500 doesn't make a difference. We're not going to be putting everybody's name in or save you any $10,000 thing for something like that. This is big businesses, big companies, and people who have the necessary resources, and they want to do a nonprofit organization, tax deduction, 501(c)(3) organization, tax ID, and you want to really put your name on something that the veterans will be well appreciated, believe me.
During what hours is the cemetery actually staffed by Mr. Horn or some others?
Oh, they start Monday through Friday. They're there at 8 o'clock in the morning, and all day to 3 o'clock. But the cemetery is there. I mean, you can.
You don't need a staff person. You can
You don't
visit
need a
it
staff
anytime
person
you
to
want.
go up there. You can walk into the building and punch in a name and get the information, what grave you want to visit, and you go over to that gravesite. It gives you all. It prints out a piece of paper and tells you where to go. So it's really technology that plays a whole role in this thing.
Right up to date. So, I guess the most famous veteran cemetery we have is the Arlington National Cemetery. And I suppose if you're lost your life in a war, that may be where you want to go first of all. But not everybody's eligible to go to Arlington. I assume that people might be eligible with this DD 214 report that you've talked about, might be eligible to be interred in a lovely veteran cemetery in New Hampshire when they wouldn't be eligible to Arlington. Is that true?
To some degree, yes. And again, that's not an affirmative. That's where the experts come in, like Mike Horn and his staff up there, who can answer that question. I'm eligible to go to Arlington, but I'm going to Boston when I'm no longer here. I think a lot of people select to go into their state cemetery because the family can't travel to Arlington. They can travel to Boscawen. So
probably going to be easier to find a grave in New Hampshire's Boscawen Cemetery than in Arlington.
I had a plot at one of the cemeteries here in Manchester, and I gave it up. And going up there, and the wife's going up there, and so.
Well, not for a long, long time, I hope, Mike.
One thing's sure, it's always busy up there. There's always somebody up there. And Memorial Day and Veterans Day, there's a good crowd up there.
Very, very good.
So.
Okay, well, that's really exciting. I didn't know we had this. I knew we had a veteran cemetery. I didn't know it was so high tech and offered so many learning experiences for people of all ages. I think it's it's quite remarkable. And if you want to help out, you now know how to do it.
Yeah, you want to repeat one more time, Mike? If someone wants to make a donation, what's the website? Where do they go to get the information?
Well, you want to go to www.nhvvictorcharliealpha.org.
And that's for Veterans Cemetery Association.
Right.
VCA.
You go there, and all the information is there, and the video is there. It tells you how to make a pledge. You can make a pledge online. You can do it by writing or get in contact with Mike Horn, myself, or any other person associated with the cemetery. Like I said, we're in the public aspect of raising the money, and any donation. Give you an example. The VFW 8214 just sent in $300. You know, every bit helps. You know, and so we're getting there, and we'll raise that $700,000. I'm confident.
That's an impressive goal.
Yes.
And did I hear you say you're at 50%? Are you at 50% of that goal? Or
We're about 50% with actual money and pledges.
and plus pledges, huh?
Because you got to remember, if you want to make a pledge of $5,000 for 3 years, you can do that, or $100 for 3 years, you can do that. So and you'll get the necessary forms in order to do that. And we'll do all the paperwork and follow up.
Great.
Well, great. Well, thanks for coming on, Mike. We're
Thanks for
very
coming
happy
on, Mike,
to,
and thanks for what you've done here. I think this is a tremendous thing to be involved in, and it's something I think New Hampshire should be justly proud to have here,
and should support wholeheartedly.
and should support wholeheartedly.
Dig deep. I know an organization that might have a donation available for that, so I'm going to have to talk to some folks.
So here's something I just learned about when we came in here tonight. The city of Manchester is having a birthday party on June 1st. That's the day after tomorrow. Why, that's Friday, June 1st. There it is. And this is, I think, an outstanding poster. This is down at City Hall Plaza. The city hasn't celebrated its birthday, which is, I guess, June 1st, 1846, for 22 years. And John Clayton's going to speak. And it's going to be speakers, entertainment, history, and fireworks on film screen. Well, that's safe, I guess.
In case they have to go indoors.
Time 6:30 to 10 p.m. City Hall Plaza. I think that's kind of neat. And if you want to come down and celebrate our city's history, who doesn't? I mean, well, the city is just on the cusp of. It's been moving ahead. Now it's on the cusp of a giant leap ahead with Army, and I saw in the news today that 2 more companies have come up to join the Army project.
The
here.
merger of the Institutes of Art.
The Institutes of Art with the New England College. I think that's good for one of our great educational institutions here.
And being able to keep its identity, too, I think is important.
Yeah. So lots is happening, and I think that might be an enjoyable thing to do if you want to come down and celebrate the great city of Manchester. And next week, you won't be here, Mike.
I will not.
You'll be a Hibernian, leading the Hibernians. And I won't be here either, folks, but I do believe Lou D'Alessandro will be here as the host, as he is most first Wednesday of the month. I won't be here then, but I'll be traveling, but I'll be back after that. And we still enjoy doing this and look forward to bringing you, I think, interesting guests. We certainly had one tonight in Mike Lopez, who's certainly devoting some real serious time to a very worthy cause.
Yeah, thanks again, Mike, for
Thanks
coming
again
in. We
for coming
appreciate
down.
that.
We
Plus
really
the
did
excellent
appreciate
video.
it. The video was
made our
terrific.
job easier here tonight.
Okay, so that's it for this week, folks. Enjoy this beautiful day.
See you next week, folks.